Well, you've probably heard that forgiveness is not about us, about the other person. Or is it the other way around? Yeah. So you know this truth. Yeah? I couldn't fool you? You know this truth? Oh. So if we know the spiritual wisdom, why don't we practice it all the time? Oh. Do we hold some expectation, perhaps, that the person is going to come back crawling to us, begging for our forgiveness, and we can grace them with our forgiveness? Or maybe we're looking for restitution. Or maybe we just want to know why they did what they did. Right? All those things go through our head when something happens to us, and we get hurt, we get offended, something really gnarly happens. All those things go through our mind, don't they? We have a right to be mad, to hold a grudge. Let me tell you what happened to me. My story. Right? Now, I'm not making light of the difficult things that happen to us. I'm just suggesting that in spiritual teaching, particularly in our prosperity teachings that we're practicing all month, forgiveness is a very, very powerful process for us, and it can hide in our subconscious. Unforgiveness can hide in our subconscious in places that we don't expect. So we're going to talk about and look at some of those today. If you feel like you've forgiven everyone in your life and there's nothing there from childhood or this morning or somebody cut you off in traffic, congratulations. But we also have these public opportunities, don't we? These public opportunities that flash across our TV screens and internet screens all the time. Washington politics. Ooh. Irrespective of which side of the aisle you like to live on, there's a lot of stuff that we can get into unforgiveness there, can't we? Resentment. Don't like those people. Blame those people. And we see it also in the Weinstein thing. And the women across the world coming onto the internet and saying, me too. Now, I'm not discounting any of these things. Again, I'm not trivializing this. But these are all opportunities for us to form an opinion, form a judgment, have resentment. And there are also opportunities for us to block the flow of good coming to us in our lives. So that's what we're talking about, is forgiveness today. I hope you knew that. So we're going to go through some things here as we wrap up our series, Doorways to Prosperity, 5 Keys to Building a Prosperous Life, with my talk, Firing the Judge. That's why I'm a Judge Judy today. We're going to fire the judge and establish some peace of mind for ourselves. So forgiveness is a process. It's not usually just something you do. Okay, I'm forgiven, it's done. Because that which has hurt us and caused us to be unforgiving is a big emotional thing, isn't it? There's usually some emotions that have occurred and they've gotten stuck. They've gotten stuck. And we continue to reflect on those things from the past. It keeps us living in the past, doesn't it? Keeps us living in the past as opposed to in the present moment. One of the processes that our prosperity teachers teach is the idea of creating a vacuum. And we've heard, was it Einstein that said the universe abhors a vacuum, or whatever, whoever was it said that, yeah. And this is a process that we use in our forgiveness work when we recognize that we need to make a vacuum in our life to make room for the good to show up. Now, what this means is, anybody got a cluttered closet? Yeah, like this one maybe? Yeah. Yeah. Maybe it's a drawer. Maybe it's a garage. Maybe it's an off-site storage locker. Ooh, all that stuff we keep, right? Yeah, now imagine some good comes to you and you've got your arms all bundled up here, you're carrying all this stuff, and somebody comes up and says, hey, I have something for you. And you go, I can't take it, I'm too full. That brand new car won't fit in my garage because it's full of boxes and stuff. Clutter, right? I can't take anymore. And that's the idea of creating this, clearing the clutter, not only in our physical environment, but in our mental environment, in our minds, in our hearts, and our emotions. clearing that clutter in our life. Catherine Ponder, in her wonderful book, The Dynamic Laws of Prosperity, she says, get rid of what you don't want to make room for what you do want. Sometimes we don't know, we know what we don't want, but we don't know maybe what we do want. We talked about that earlier this month, that sometimes we just don't know what we want. But when we clear that clutter, it opens us up for that dynamic flow of universal creativity to come through us with more divine ideas, because we're no longer filled up with clutter. We're no longer filled up with clutter. So it's a wonderful process to clear this clutter and make room, make a vacuum for the good to flow. So let's look at some specifics. If we are looking to manifest a relationship in our life, and we're still holding on to hurt and things that have happened to us in the past, we're living over here in the past, aren't we? We're resenting all that stuff that happened in the past as opposed to being in the present moment and being really clear. I hear frequently in conversation men and women saying things like, all women, all men are fill in the blanks, right? And then they complain that they don't have a relationship. And it's always an interesting dichotomy for me to think, if I were the universe, and on one hand you're saying, I want a relationship, and on the other hand you're saying, all of those people I want a relationship with are bad. I don't like them. They have hurt me. So what do we get? Confusion, right? We get confusion. So it's cleaning up and clearing up those old resentments, those old hurts, forgiving those people so that we can clean up and clear up and create that vacuum for the new to flow, to actually create in our lives then what it is that we truly want to experience. What about our finances? What about our finances? Can unforgiveness affect us there? Sure it can. Sure it can. If we're focusing on a situation that involved money with resentment, and, most of us have had a few of those, particularly in the last, 10 years, of that lovely thing called the Great Recession that we all went through. If you lost a home, if you lost your portfolio, if you lost your job, have you made peace with that? Have you forgiven that? When we say prime lending, Bank of America, what's the other one? Wells Fargo, when any of those things, is there unforgiveness in us around that? We need to do work there if there is, because it's holding us back from that greater good coming to us because we're stuck in the past again. Now that was some ugly stuff, and a lot of us lost a lot of things. And I have a right to be indignant about that. I saved. Those people took advantage. They hurt me. Logical feelings, aren't they? But can you see how that holds us back from receiving our good? Can you see how that keeps us stuck in replaying that old story, that old story, that old story, and not allowing us to see the new opportunities coming to us today that we could focus on and expand and grow in our life and our financial good? Are you complaining about your paycheck? Well, so-and-so gets more than I do. I'm mad at the company because of that. I don't make enough money. If we're harboring that, we can't receive more, can we? We can't receive more if we're harboring that. I had an interesting thing that happened even in my office on Thursday. I heard that one of our investors had called the office and said, well, I use the services of one of the companies that I'm invested in, but I want the invoice to be forgiven. I don't want to pay for it because I'm an investor. I'm a partner. And I thought, wow, that's interesting karma. I wonder how that's going to manifest in his life. Now, obviously, we've got some cleanup work to do there. It'd be like if I own Coca-Cola stock, I'm going into the store and going, I don't have to pay for my Coca-Cola because I am a shareholder. Right? Same type of thing. So those are the kinds of interesting things that happen in our financial life that can stop the flow of creativity. And if we can clean that up, then we create that vacuum for the good to flow to us. Some of this could go way back. Anybody raised by Depression-era parents? And did they implant some ideas in us about about that, about their struggles and what they went through. Again, not discounting that. It was really real. But do we have to drag that forward with us? What about the S&L crisis? Anybody old enough in the room to remember that one from the 80s and 90s? Still holding on to anything from those days? Mad at those S&Ls? Mad at the RTC? Yeah. Those are places that we can get stuck energy and not even realize it. You probably hadn't thought about the S&L thing for years. Lucky you, now it's in your brain, right? Now you can get mad all over again. But it's a wonderful opportunity for some forgiveness work. It's a wonderful opportunity for some forgiveness work. So what about our health? Does unforgiveness impact our health? Yeah. Mentally, emotionally, physically, it sure can. It absolutely can. Yeah, it absolutely can. In Catherine Ponder's book, The Dynamic Laws of Prosperity, again, she tells of a man who got very ill. And it was one of her students, and the doctors couldn't figure out what was going on with him at all, and he was running a very high fever. And so one evening the fever got high, and he really got concerned about it because they couldn't figure out what was wrong. So he began to go into his spiritual practices, and he remembered this law of creating a vacuum for greater prosperity and thought about forgiveness. So he asked himself, is there anybody in my life I have not forgiven? And immediately, the face of someone that he held a huge grudge against came forward in his imagination. And he began to do forgiveness work specifically on that evening. And the next morning, he was fine. And the doctor still could not figure out what had caused that in him. But when he began that forgiveness work and began releasing that, he created a vacuum. Ponder says, through forgiveness, this man had formed the vacuum needed so that new life could restore his body to health and his mind to peace. Powerful stuff, isn't it? Powerful stuff. There's a lot of stories about releasing clutter of our mind, our emotions, and our homes. And we can feel that movement. I've had it in my own life. As I downsized, I thought I had downsized enough to fit in my new little house. I had not. So I had lots of stuff. I was still moving stuff out. But I noticed that until I started moving that stuff out, there was some stuckness in some areas of my life. Did I associate the two at the time? No. Am I this week? Yes. So I've been working on that. I'm releasing other things and making more room and making more space. There's a story of a couple that wanted new furniture. They got rid of all their other furniture and looked at empty space to allow for that vacuum to be there to allow the good to come to them. So there's, spiritual practice, right? Spiritual strength and courage. So another process that we use in this work of forgiveness is called reframing our victim story. Reframing our victim story. When something has happened to us and we are unforgiving, we are the victim, are we not? Someone's done something to us. They were bad. We can blame them. They did it. Let me tell you what happened to me. Let me tell you my story. We're the victim in that. Don Miguel Ruiz, our book that we just finished, The Voice of Knowledge, the whole book is about that. The whole book is about how we create stories. And you've heard me talk about this before here. Make up a better story, right? And that's what Don Miguel was talking about. The life that we live is the story that we've made up. Anybody ever shared a memory with somebody of an event that they were at and you were at and you said this happened and they went, that's not how it happened? Eyewitness reports, right? Yeah, it's not how it happened. And it's because we perceive life through our own perspective, a lot of times through our own wounds. We perceive life through our own wounds sometimes, and we put our own, Panavision color thingy on it, on what it's going to be, what that story's going to be, what it means to us, what it means to us. Think about becoming the hero in your story instead of the victim. Is that a big leap? Let's think about something else. Have you ever seen the movies Lord of the Rings, Indiana Jones, Star Wars. Those are all stories of like a hero's journey, aren't they? Where these people go off and these things happen to them, but at the end of the movie, they're all smiling and happy. They're not telling you their victim story. Oh my gosh, the snakes almost got me. Oh my gosh, Darth Vader almost got me. I just fought that dragon. It was just awful. They don't tell us those stories. They come back with the prize, with the girl, with the planet, or the gold thing, or the chest, or whatever it was. They come back with the prize, don't they? They're the hero in their stories. They're not the victim. So think about your story, and where can you glean from it the gift and the difficulty? I heard that last week. I was talking to a friend of mine, and how you doing? And the response was, I'm still looking for the gift and the difficulty. And I thought that was so empowering. Instead of telling me the story and the drama and this is what happened and oh my gosh, she just simply said, I'm still looking for the gift and the difficulty, but I'll find it. I'll find it. And I just thought that was much more empowering than telling the story one more time, right? Telling the story one more time. So I've used this as a process in my life of making up a better story, so much so that I've been accused frequently of having a degree from MSU, making stuff up. But I'd rather be happy. I'd rather be happy, and I know all of what I create as far as misery and suffering, I do it here. I do it here. Because everybody doesn't have the same experience of an event that I do. So I know that we all filter each experience on our own, and it's the stories we make up about the meaning it has in our life. And I want to be happy, so I'm going to make up a better story. I'm going to give it a different meaning. And I've been working on some forgiveness issues, and it's real life, right? Isn't that what we teach around here? It's real life. I get to experience it and then come tell you what happened on my journey. And it's in and out. You start the work, you start the process, and you think you got it, and then something happens, and then boom, it comes right back up. And it's that adrenaline rush, isn't it? It's the anger. It's the frustration. It's the, oh, that hurt, the woe is me, the tears, whatever it might be. We go back into it, and then we do some more work. And we reframe. We reframe. What did I learn? What did I gain? What is the wisdom here? What is the gift in this difficulty for me? Until finally we get to a place where we can move to gratitude. We move into gratitude for that which has occurred because we've gotten the gift. We've gotten the golden egg. Wow. That person is no longer the perpetrator. They're my teacher. And I'm grateful. They've become my teacher. Because somewhere at a soul level, it's not conscious. People are not consciously, I don't think, coming to us and going, I'm going to make your life miserable so that you resent me and you have unforgiveness. I just don't think we were wired that way. I think stuff happens. But when we can recognize at a soul level some gift in that we received, that advances us on our spiritual journey, on our evolutionary unfolding, that person is a gift, aren't they? They're our teacher at that point. And then that's a beautiful process to begin to shift that energy and shift that perspective and get off of that hamster cage of replaying that in our heads over and over and over and over again and start focusing on the now, this present moment, this moment that is pregnant with possibilities, infinite possibilities. That's the cool thing about our forgiveness work. Edwene Gaines has some amazing forgiveness stories in her book, starting with herself. She was severely molested as a child sexually, and it took her a long time of telling her story until she was late in her adult life, until finally one of her teachers called her on it and said, "Girlie, you've told this story enough. We've got to reframe it." And she was shocked, if you can imagine. That's a horrific story, isn't it? She was shocked. But that teacher helped her to reframe that, to recognize the power that she had stepped into as a prosperity teacher, to have experienced forgiveness at such a level, to then be able to teach it as one of her 4 spiritual principles of prosperity is forgiveness work. And she speaks from whence she knows, right? She speaks from her heart on that because she's done the work. She's done the work. You may have seen the video that I posted this week from the woman that was shot by the 13-year-old boy. The 13-year-old boy was sent to prison for life. Life in prison at 13 years old. And he reached out to her from prison one Christmas to wish her a Merry Christmas and to apologize to her, which activated in her a mission to free him, which she did. And then, because he had been raised in prison in those formative years, she helped him. How to rent an apartment, how to drive a car, how to use a cell phone, the computer, get a job. He didn't know any of those things. She helped him. Huge forgiveness. This young man shot her. And we hear stories about horrific murders and things where parents have come in and forgiven the perpetrators that killed the children. We heard in the reading about Gandhi forgiving the person that shot him on the spot before he passed. I'm not discounting the terrible things that can happen, but I am suggesting that there's nothing that should not or cannot be forgiven. For your own peace of mind. For your own peace of mind. So if you are dealing with an issue that won't budge, something that's just stuck, and we have those, don't we? We have those. I invite you to call one of our spiritual practitioners and visit with them, talk with them. Allow them to help you reframe whatever this is, to open you up for that vacuum of universal good to flow into your life, and to recognize the gift in the difficulty, to transform your perpetrator to a teacher, and to move to gratitude from resentment, anger, hatred. Those just feel bad, don't they? They just feel icky. And that's what our forgiveness work does. It gets rid of the ickiness and opens us up to the dynamic flow of the divine through us. Clear channels. Clear channels. So let's move into our practicing the principles. And our first one is making room for our good. Making room for our good. We can't receive more if our hands are full, if our homes are full, if our minds are stuffed with old stories and the hamster wheel of things going round and round and replaying those events. We can't receive more, can we? We can't receive the divine ideas if our brain's already full of stuff. The second is reframe your victim story. Look for the gift and become the hero. You know, go home and watch those movies. Rent Star Wars. Watch the movie. Watch how they do it. All the battles and attacks and the X-Wing fighters and all the stuff that happens. And at the end, yay! Right? You know, all those things have happy endings. They come back with the ring. Yay! Even though there were dragons, it's okay. Show yourself those encouraging stories, and you too can become the hero in your own story. And then the wrongdoer as your teacher, reframing that from the perpetrator to a teacher, a guru, someone who at the soul level loves you enough to give you this gift of this very difficult lesson. And finally, forgiveness begins as an act of will. Would you agree? It's not something we voluntarily sign up for and say, yeah, I want to do some forgiveness work today. Wouldn't that be festive? No, we don't. But it's important. It's important work. I mean, it's like, I don't like cleaning up my garage, right? Nasty, especially in July. But we need to do it. We need to do it. There's things in life we just need to do. Forgiveness work is one of them. So using these processes today, this forgiveness work, it's another way to supercharge the prosperity in your life. It is another way. It's a shortcut, okay? It's a shortcut. We're all looking for shortcuts. Tithing, forgiveness. Those are your two big shortcuts this month. If you'll do those spiritual practices, your life will improve. Even if it's great, it's going to get greater. So I think it's time that we fire the judge in our heads. Let's fire Judge Judy. Let's get rid of her. She's burning up. Get out of the black. Get into the red. Yay. All right. Woo. Fire Judge Judy. Practice our forgiveness. Allow the good of God to flow through you. Allow the good of God to flow through you. So let's recap our 5 keys to building a prosperous life. This is our last in the prosperity series for this year. So I want to recap the 5 that we've talked about. The first week was acceptance and receiving. Being open to receive our good. Being willing to receive our good. Because we deserve it. We are worthy of it. The divine ideas of desire that come through us are gifts from God. Because we are worthy of them. We would not choose them. We would not be interested in them at all were they not. Number 2 was making peace with money with Reverend Karen. What's the money for? Money Monday, Faithful Friday. Remember those? The third one was our practice of tithing, the power of 10. I hope many of you have been practicing that, and I hope that you're seeing that in your life being made manifest. It sometimes can take 90 to 180 days to really get us shifted in our acceptance of tithing and really getting the logic out of our head, because it's not logical. I'm giving away 10% and the 90% is going to go further. It's not logical, but it's what happens. So I invite you, if you're not, to start practicing that. Setting goals, directing our faith from last week. Use Edwine's 10 goals. We handed those out Wednesday night in our study group as a way that we can use these practices to set the goals. Direct our faith. Tell the universe exactly what it is that we want to see. Create the mold. Create the mold. If we don't, who will? If we don't, who will? And then today, of course, is our spiritual forgiveness. Choose to activate this mysterious power in your life to gain greater prosperity and freedom. It's freeing to forgive. Because otherwise, it's that old adage about drinking poison and hoping the other person dies, isn't it? The poison is destroying us when we are in unforgiveness of anyone or anything. So we have discussed some very powerful and proven tools to reveal your magnificence this month. I hope that you use every one of them, get every ounce out of them, and see the good flow through your lives. See the good flow through your lives. So we did our money finders. We had contemplation of your resistance to receiving. We've been using affirmations. Our Money Monday, Faithful Friday. Our spiritual practice of tithing, our 21-day challenge. Who did that? Who had a festive week doing that one this week? Anybody make it through 7 days? Anybody on day 1? Yeah. Wasn't that fun? Yeah. It's amazing, isn't it, how that continues to pop up. Yeah. Keep practicing. You'll get it. You'll get it, I promise. And then, of course, our mysterious power of forgiveness. So that's our prosperity series. Thank you for being with us this month. I've had a great time. I hope you've enjoyed it. And let's anchor this whole thing in prayer. How about that? So how good it is to come together in community this morning as we celebrate the prosperity of our life. And that prosperity is more than just money. It's health, it's career, it's relationships. It's all of that. It's the wholeness of life expressed through each of us. And we know that that wholeness of life is the divine. It is God itself. It is the power and the presence that holds universes together, creates universes. It is love and joy, is harmony. It is all of that and so much more. And all of it's here now present in, through, and as me, and in, through, and as each one of us, as we have gathered here this day in the one, as the one, connected at that soul and spirit level, yet individualized and unique in that expression. So I know and claim for each of us this day the absolute manifestation in solid form of whatever it is that is on our hearts. Whatever it is, whatever that desire in our heart is that has been planted by Spirit, that has called to us like a siren song. Doesn't call to everybody else in the room, it just calls to us individually. I know that that is made manifest now. I know that it is revealed in our lives as that wholeness of God, as love, as joy, as creativity, as healing, as health, as abundant flow of good and money and cash and whatever else may be in our hearts that is that divine desire. I affirm that it is already done. It is already so. So it's with great gratitude that I just release this into the activity of law, allowing the law to get busy bringing forth all of those desires that it has implanted within us, as we just open to receive with great joy, gladness, and expectation. And we affirm this together by saying, and so it is.